On a freezing rainy night, a young black girl came across an elderly white man, soaked, shivering, and lost at a bus stop. Knowing she would be late for work, she still crossed the street, wrapped her coat around him, called an ambulance, and stayed by his side until help arrived. That small act of kindness cost her the only job she had to support her family, but that very moment became the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. If you were in her shoes, would you have made the same choice? Let us know below. Willow pulled her hood tight as the wind picked up, slapping damp air against her face. Her shift at the gas station had ended 7 minutes late, again. It was her last one, actually. The seasonal job was over, and Denise had already hinted there wouldn't be hours next week. Willow had juggled part-time high school and evening work for months, and now the juggling act was losing a hand. Denise hadn't said anything, but the way she handed over the paper bag said enough. A leftover biscuit, wrapped in a napkin already spotted with grease. "You should eat something," Denise muttered. "Storm's close. Don't drag your feet." Willow nodded without answering. She didn't have the breath for anything more. Her legs ached from the hours on her feet, a dull heat rising up her calves. Her left ankle throbbed, sharp and steady, from standing too long in sneakers that had outlived 2 summers. The sole on that side had split weeks ago, and now, whenever the pavement was damp, the cold found its way in first, seeping through her sock before she even noticed. Every few steps the shoe tilted slightly inward, forcing her to adjust her stride without thinking. She'd learned to walk like that, quietly, efficiently, like it didn't hurt. Her second shift was at Rudy's Diner, 6 blocks across town. She'd worked that route so many times her body could trace every crack in the sidewalk without thinking. Tonight her backpack felt heavier, not from weight, just from the kind of tired that settles deep in your bones when you've been holding too much for too long. She crossed Jefferson Avenue, passing the liquor store with the blinking open sign and the boarded-up pet shop that always smelled like wet wood. The wind was colder now, the kind that cut through cotton. She shoved her free hand deeper into her pocket. Willow pressed forward, eyes scanning the sidewalk ahead. The diner's neon sign was just visible past the intersection, flickering pale green against the night. She exhaled sharply, pulling the biscuit bag closer to her chest. She wasn't late, not yet. Then her eyes caught something. A figure, hunched, barely upright, standing. Near the bus stop across the street, beside the bench half-eaten by rust, stood an old man, alone, drenched, arms limp at his sides. One shoe bent inward like he'd stepped wrong and never bothered to fix it. His coat sagged open. His thin white hair was matted to his scalp, and he was trying slowly, shakily, to crouch down. He didn't make it. His knees gave out part way, and he dropped to the bench instead, missing the edge slightly, then righting himself with effort. His hand gripped the metal like it was the only thing he trusted to stay still. He wasn't crying out, he wasn't waving for help, he just looked undone, like something inside had been unraveling for hours, quietly. Willow's steps slowed. She looked down the street again. At Rudy's. She could already hear Craig's voice in her head. "You walk in late. Don't bother walking in again." Her hand slipped into her coat pocket, fingers closing around the cheap plastic phone. She checked the time. 6:27. She had 3 minutes left, maybe less if the light at Lincoln stayed red. Helping him now meant one thing: she wouldn't make it in time, not even close. Her fingers clenched the paper bag. The smell of the biscuit had faded under the scent of rain and engine oil. Her stomach cramped, but it wasn't just hunger anymore. It was pressure. All of it pressing down. Rent due in 6 days and only 2 doses of medicine left at home. Her eyes drifted back to the old man. He tried again to reach for his twisted shoe, but his hand missed by inches. His shoulders slumped. The movement wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of small surrender people make when they know no one's coming. Willow stood still for a beat, caught between the diner and the bus stop, between her paycheck and this stranger, soaked through to his socks. She didn't weigh it anymore. Willow stepped off the sidewalk and crossed the street. Rain hit harder. The metal roof above them rattled as water pelted down like loose gravel. Willow's steps slowed as her sneakers hit the edge of the curb. Water soaked through the fabric within seconds. Her fingers tightened around the biscuit bag, knuckles pale. The rain had turned steady now, no longer a warning but a presence. The old man stood still, just a few yards away, blinking under the cold platform light. His shoulders were hunched forward, thin frame shaking in soft jerks like he couldn't quite control it. His eyes were glassy, darting back and forth between her and the street behind him. Willow glanced across the road toward Rudy's. She could just make out Craig's silhouette moving behind the counter, wiping something down. Time was slipping through her hands like the rain down her sleeves. She exhaled through her nose and stepped forward. "Sir?" Her voice was gentle but unsure. "Are you okay?" He didn't speak, just sat there, blinking at nothing. Whatever thoughts he had were locked away somewhere far from here. Willow crouched beside him, brushing her wet bangs from her face, her fingers numb. She hesitated for a moment, then pulled off her hoodie. She laid it over his shoulders like a blanket. The cold rushed in on her skin immediately, biting across her arms and neck. But she didn't take it back. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen flickered, battery low. Her thumb tapped quickly, 911. The dispatcher's voice came through, distant but calm. Willow gave the location, her voice tight from the cold. "There's an old man here, looks confused, lost, he's alone and soaked through. I don't think he knows where he is." The woman on the line asked her to stay with him. Help was on the way. "Okay," Willow whispered. She glanced at the diner across the street. Its neon sign buzzed like a wasp trapped in glass. She could picture the steam on the kitchen window, the sharp slam of the prep table, the sound of Craig's voice barking through the swinging door. Her shift had started 5 minutes ago. She looked back at the old man. He was still shivering, holding the edge of her hoodie like it was something fragile, something that made him feel anchored. She sat beside him. Her shirt clung to her back, damp and cold. She rested her arms on her knees, not knowing what else to do but wait. The patrol car arrived 9 minutes later. An officer stepped out and approached slowly, eyes soft, hands open. "We got a call about someone needing help?" Willow stood, her joints stiff from the cold. "He was trying to fix his shoe when I saw him. Couldn't keep his balance. He hasn't said much." The officer nodded and crouched down to speak gently to the man. A few words passed between them, though Willow couldn't make them out. A second officer opened the back door of the cruiser. The old man didn't resist when they helped him in. He just looked at Willow once before getting in, eyes wide and wet like the rest of him. "You did good," the first officer said. "Not many people would have stopped." Willow nodded once, then turned and ran. By the time she reached Rudy's, her socks squelched in her shoes, her shirt stuck to her arms, and her fingers ached as she pushed open the back door. The kitchen heat slapped her across the face. Craig was plating hash browns. He looked up and froze. "You're 14 minutes late." Nope." He threw the spatula down, loud. "Don't even. I told you last week, one more late clock in, don't bother clocking in at all." There was an old man. "You think I care?" His voice cut through the kitchen, sharp enough to make the line cook turn. "You think any of these people get to stroll in wet and make excuses?" "Harry's in trouble," Willow said, quieter now. "Didn't know where he was." Craig stepped closer. "This is a job. You want to play social worker? Go volunteer. But I don't pay for people who don't show up when they're supposed to." Willow stood still, her chest tight, her clothes dripping onto the floor. Craig jerked his thumb toward the alley. "Out, and don't ask about last week's check, it's gone." Her breath caught, but she didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. She stepped back into the rain. The door slammed behind her. She stood there for a second, the wind wrapping around her wet arms, her body already starting to shake. The sky above was gray, washed out and endless. Willow walked slowly along the sidewalk, the wind slapping against her face like it was trying to strip away the last bit of warmth she had left. Her soaked shirt clung to her skin, heavy with the smell of mildew, exhaust, and fryer grease trailing from the street behind her. She didn't look up, didn't turn around. Each step was a quiet reminder that she'd just lost her job, and with it the only money she was counting on this week. Her worn-out shoes were waterlogged, squelching with every movement like the sound of a sigh that wouldn't end. By the time she reached the apartment complex, the downstairs hallway light was flickering, like always. Her floor was completely dark. Willow slipped the key into the lock, turned it gently, and pushed the door open as quietly as she could. Not because she didn't want to wake anyone, because she didn't think she had the strength to face another sound right now. Inside, the small apartment was dim. A single yellow light from the kitchen cast a weak glow across her mother's face. She was sitting against the wall, wrapped in a thin blanket. Her breath came heavy, her forehead glistened with sweat, even though the room was cold enough to see your breath. Willow rushed over, dropped her backpack, and knelt beside her. "Did you take your medicine?" she asked softly. Her mother gave the faintest shake of her head. Her throat must have been sore. She didn't say a word. Willow reached for the bottle on the nightstand. Only 2 pills left. She paused, glanced toward the kitchen, then froze. The last cup of water. She had knocked it over that morning on her way out. She dug through her bag, pulled out a half-crushed plastic bottle. It was barely 1/3 full, but it was all she had. She twisted the cap, then placed the pills and water gently into her mother's hands. "Is all we've got left. Try to rest," she murmured, her voice dry and raspy, like it hadn't been used in hours. Her mother swallowed the pill without complaint and leaned back into the pillow. Willow grabbed the cleanest rag she could find and dabbed the sweat from her forehead. Red blotches had spread across her mother's cheeks. Fever. And no fever medicine left. The wind hissed through a crack in the window. Willow got up, pulled the thin curtain shut, and crossed the room to the desk where her phone had been charging since the afternoon. She plugged in her earbuds and opened her school app. Her heart stopped. A suspension notice. 2 terms of unpaid tuition. The robotic voice echoed in her ears. If payment is not received within 7 days, your student status will be deactivated. She shut it off immediately, her chest tightening like something had slipped through and fallen away. Not panic, just nothing. She slumped down by the desk and curled her arms around her knees. Her soaked clothes were starting to freeze. Her brain couldn't fully grasp what had just happened. Only a week ago she thought she could make it work, with Rudy's paycheck and a couple extra shifts. Now it was all gone. Soft footsteps creaked on the floorboards. Her little brother, Mal, stood in the doorway of the bedroom. His eyes were barely open, hair messy from sleep, one hand rubbing his cheek. But his gaze locked onto hers. "You don't work there anymore?" he asked. Not angry, not accusing, just a soft question, barely louder than the wind outside. Willow didn't answer, couldn't. Her lips pressed tight, eyes dropped to the floor. Mal stood there a moment longer, then turned and went back to bed. No follow-up, no good night. She was alone again. No one yelled, no one cried. Her mother drifted into sleep. Mal went back to his blanket. No one blamed her. But it was that silence, that awful, suffocating silence, that made her feel like she couldn't breathe. It wasn't the harsh words that broke her. It was the emptiness, the absence of anything at all. Like her kindness hadn't just gone unnoticed, but had been swallowed whole by the dark. She lowered her head onto her knees. Her body folded in on itself like she wanted to disappear into the cold air around her. Everything she was holding on to, school, her job, her mother's health, Mal's future, was slipping away, one piece at a time. Morning crept in slowly, but the air remained cold and overcast. Pale gray light spilled through the small window, casting a faint glow on Willow's hands as she folded clothes. She sat cross-legged on the floor, smoothing out each shirt, stacking them neatly into a small fabric tote. There wasn't much left, but they were clean enough to wear for job hunting. She folded the last button down and glanced up at the wall clock. Not even 8 yet. Her mom was still asleep and Mal hadn't woken up. The room was unusually quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock, as if counting down to something even she couldn't name. Willa stood slowly, shrugged her shoulders back into her shirt, and dragged the chair a little closer to the desk. She opened her phone, pulled up the job search app, but before she could even type a word, the battery warning flashed red and the screen went black. She let out a breath and pressed the power button again. Nothing. The charger had stopped working yesterday. She hunched forward, resting her forehead against the back of her hand, eyes closed, willing the exhaustion not to spread any further than it already had. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, in a warm apartment nestled in the wealthy northern district of the city, a video was making its rounds across every social media platform. A downpour of rain, a deserted bus stop, a young woman, soaked through, kneeling to drape her jacket over a trembling old man, then gently helping him sit before pulling out her phone with wet, shaking hands. The clip lasted less than a minute, but it stopped people in their tracks. TikTok bold text read, "If you know who she is, please tell us." The account belonged to @Natalie Langston, a middle-aged woman with streaks of silver in her hair and tired lines on her face, but a steady fire in her eyes. She had posted with a caption, "The man in this video is my father. He experienced temporary memory loss and was lost in the cold rain. Someone helped him. With nothing but kindness. I need to find her." Comments poured in by the thousands. "An angel in the storm. She's the light this city needs. No one does that just to be noticed, but we need to find her." Within hours, the clip had been reposted across Facebook, Twitter, and local community pages. One digital headline read, "Keeper of the Flame, who is the girl in the rain?" On the morning broadcast, the local news anchor opened with a voice full of feeling. "No one knows her name. No one saw her face clearly, but the whole city is looking for a girl. Someone who didn't walk away." And in another part of town, at the small gas station where Willow used to work, Denise was sipping her morning coffee in the break room. Her phone lit up as she scrolled through Facebook. Then she froze. The clip wasn't clear, no visible face, but when the girl knelt down, her dark coat slipped from her shoulder. Denise squinted and leaned in. She focused on the inside lining, a patch of hand-stitched thread, right where Willow once said it tore. She turned the volume up. Rain, voices, that soft, trembling tone. She didn't need to see the face. She knew that voice. The coffee cup hit the table. Denise stood straight up. "Lord have mercy, it's that girl. Willow." She rushed to the front, grabbed the landline, and flipped through the staff directory for a number. Behind her, the video kept looping, the frame frozen on the moment the girl draped the jacket over the old man's shoulders, a gesture so gentle it burned into memory. And Willow, unaware of all of it, was stepping outside with a fabric bag in her arms. She had no idea. No idea that in just a few more hours the name she thought no one remembered would be on everyone's lips. Willow had just finished handwriting 3 job applications when the hallway phone rang. It was rare for anyone to call in the morning, and even rarer for someone to be asking for her. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped outside and picked up the receiver. Denise's voice came through, a little hoarse but clear. "Willow, could you stop by the station for a bit? Someone wants to meet you." She didn't ask who, just softly replied, "Okay," and hung up. All the way there, her mind spun with guesses. Maybe it was a response to one of her applications, or perhaps a former customer wanting to say thanks. But beneath it all was a strange sensation, not quite anxiety, not quite hope, like something was waiting just beyond a door she hadn't seen yet. The gas station looked the same as ever, carrying that familiar blend of fuel and lukewarm coffee. Denise stood behind the counter, next to a well-dressed woman in a beige raincoat. Her face was composed but tired, like someone who had traveled a long way just to find one answer. As Willow entered, Denise motioned her over. "Willow, come here. This is Ms. Natalie Langston. She's here to give you something." The woman stepped forward and nodded, then reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. "I'm here on behalf of my father, Arthur Langston. He doesn't remember your face clearly, but he remembers your hands." Willow took the letter with both hands, slightly trembling. The handwriting was smooth, slightly slanted, written in black ink. Dear young woman, I don't remember your face, but I remember the first touch. The trembling hands that placed a coat on my shoulders in the cold rain. I remember your voice, shaky yet kind, asking if I was okay. In my foggy memory, one thing stood out with clarity. Your kindness was real. When I came to in the hospital, I couldn't stop thinking about the person who helped me. I asked my daughter to find you, and she did. I wanted to thank you, not with money, but with something more lasting. The Langston Foundation, established by my family, offers scholarships to students who show both promise and compassion. You didn't ask, but I believe you are more deserving than anyone. Enclosed is a full scholarship. My daughter would also like to offer you a position as the community project coordinator for one of our new programs, should you be open to it. Willow, thank you for not walking away. With respect, Arthur Langston. Willow read each line as her heart pounded harder with every word. The letter wasn't long, not flowery, not dramatic, but it said something no one had ever said to her. That her kindness mattered. She clutched the letter, looked up at Natalie, who now smiled with misty eyes, and felt Denise place a hand gently on her shoulder. I knew it from the moment I saw the coat, Denise said. It had to be you. Willow nodded slightly, lips trembling, as if her whole body had been waiting for this, for someone to finally say she had done the right thing, even when no one had seen. Natalie handed her a second envelope. This has the scholarship details and information about the project. If you're willing, we'll take care of everything, housing, tuition, even a living stipend to get you started. Willow said nothing. She just stood there, holding the envelopes close to her chest, a quiet fullness rising in her that had no name. It wasn't salvation, it wasn't a miracle. It was something simpler. For the first time in her life, she was being seen. Not because she was poor, not because someone pitied her, but because she was worthy. A full year had passed since that freezing, rain-soaked night. Yet it lived in Willow Hayes like a quiet song that never left. Now she sat in the back row of a college lecture hall, eyes fixed on the whiteboard smeared with half-erased economics formulas. Her classmates scribbled casually, some yawning, some scrolling on their phones. But Willow, she watched every line of chalk, every motion of the professor's hand, like it was all a fragile thread, one she had earned the right to hold. Her pen moved slowly but surely. There was no rush, only intention. Each stroke was a quiet act of resistance against the version of herself who once believed college belonged to someone else. This wasn't luck. This wasn't charity. This was the result of showing up, even when the world didn't. No one around her could have known that 12 months earlier she'd been soaked to the bone, standing in the middle of a dark street, handing her only coat to a stranger. Or that she'd spent nights in a cold room rationing medicine, running 17 blocks just to make a test, going hungry so her little brother could have dinner. Those memories didn't haunt her, they anchored her. They reminded her why she was here, and why she would stay. She used to wonder what it meant to be seen. For so long, being seen meant being pitied, judged, or dismissed. But now, she was recognized not because she was struggling, but because she mattered. And she didn't carry that lightly. The Langston Scholarship gave her more than tuition. It gave her a reason to lift her head. Her internship at the community center gave her more than experience. It gave her purpose. Willow didn't chase straight A's to impress anyone. She kept going because she'd once made herself a promise, whispered on a sleepless night when her hands were trembling and the rent was overdue. If I ever get through this, I won't forget the ones still stuck in the dark. So she walked into summer schools where kids stared back with hard, tired eyes. She stepped into neighborhoods most people avoided, armed only with a whiteboard and a quiet voice. She knocked on the doors of nursing homes and sat with people no one had spoken to in weeks. She never gave speeches about her story, she just told it simply. Not to make herself the hero, just to say, I see you. I was there too. One autumn evening, the community center held a gathering in the school auditorium. The seats were full. Students, parents, neighbors, volunteers. They asked Willow to speak. She didn't bring a script. She walked to the mic, waited until the room quieted, and said, "Sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't feel brave. It feels like standing still while everyone else walks past, like losing something you really needed just for stopping to help. But maybe that's where everything starts. Not when the world claps for you, but when you stay kind even when no one's watching, even when it costs you." For a few long seconds there was silence. Then the first clap broke through, then another, and suddenly it wasn't polite applause, it was something deeper. Some cried, some stood, some just closed their eyes like the words had reached a place they didn't know needed healing. Willow didn't beam or bow, she just nodded gently, as if to say, "Thank you, I needed that too." Later that day, she walked back through campus under a sky beginning to fade into lavender. The halls were mostly empty, her footsteps steady against the polished tile. Not hurried, not heavy, just present. Her final class was at the far end of the corridor. As she stepped inside, the setting sun spilled through the windows, casting golden streaks across the desks. She slid into her seat without a sound. No one looked up, no one cheered, and that was perfectly fine. Because she didn't need recognition. She didn't need proof. She belonged. Willa opened her notebook, clicked her pen, and looked out once more at the sky, where the last light of evening danced through the trees. And as the wind whispered through the glass, she began to write. Maybe the right thing won't make sense today, but one day it will make you whole. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.